My brother-in-law grabbed the microphone at my sister's baby shower in front of 63 women who had driven from 4 different states to celebrate her, and announced that the condo I'd spent 8 years saving for was going to become his investment property. When I said no, he threw a glass of sparkling cider at my face. He didn't expect that my college roommate, a sitting federal magistrate, was standing 3 feet away holding a plate of petit fours. That's where this story ends. Let me tell you where it begins. My sister Alicia is 2 years younger than me and has always been the soft one. I mean that with every bit of love I have. She cried at commercials for paper towels. She brought home injured birds in shoeboxes. She had this gift for making everyone around her feel like the most important person in the room, which is exactly how she fell in love with a man like Damon. I met Damon at Alicia's birthday dinner, maybe 3 years ago now. He was charming the way certain men are charming, effortlessly, strategically, like breathing. He had opinions about wine and a very good watch, and he laughed just a little too loudly at his own jokes. I noticed these things and said nothing, because Alicia looked at him the way she'd looked at the injured birds. Like he needed her, and like needing her was the same thing as loving her. I'm 31. I work as a licensed occupational therapist at a pediatric rehabilitation center in Atlanta. I've been there for 6 years. My salary is not glamorous, nobody goes into pediatric OT for the money. But I am careful, and I am disciplined, and about 2 years ago, after living in a one-bedroom apartment with a broken dishwasher and a neighbor who played bass guitar at midnight, I closed on a 2-bedroom condo in the old Fourth Ward. The down payment was $47,000. Every dollar of it came from me. It took almost a decade of secondhand furniture, packed lunches, and exactly one vacation per year. The condo is not large, but it is mine in a way that very few things in my life have ever been mine, and I understand it the way you understand something you bled for. Damon knew about the condo. He knew about it the way he knew about everything that belonged to other people, with a proprietary attention that made me uncomfortable in ways I couldn't always name. The first time he came over, he walked through every room with his hands in his pockets and said, "Great bones, good location. This'll appreciate fast. Not 'your place is beautiful,' or 'you must be so proud.' Just an appraisal, like he was the assessor and I'd invited him." I noted it. I said nothing. Alicia and Damon got engaged 18 months after they met. I was her maid of honor. I threw her a beautiful engagement party at my condo, rearranged all the furniture, strung lights on the balcony, made her mother's lemon pound cake from scratch because it was Alicia's favorite. Damon came 40 minutes late, helped himself to the food without acknowledging me, and spent most of the evening on his phone by the window. When he left, he clapped me on the shoulder like I was a buddy from the gym and said, "Nice place. You should really think about renting it out. Passive income." "I live here," I said. He laughed like I'd said something naive. The wedding was lovely. Alicia was radiant. I gave a toast that made my mother cry in the good way. I genuinely, carefully, tried to like Damon, or at least to see what Alicia saw. Then she got pregnant and everything accelerated. Alicia and Damon were renting a 2-bedroom apartment in Decatur. Nice neighborhood, decent school district, manageable rent. When Alicia called me in tears at 11 on a Tuesday night, 3 months into her pregnancy, I assumed something was medically wrong and my heart stopped for about 4 seconds. "He says we need a house," she said, voice thick. "He says we can't raise a baby in the apartment." "Okay," I said carefully. "That's not unreasonable. Have you been looking?" "He wants to buy," she said. "But his credit." She paused. "His credit is not good right now." I found out later that not good right now meant a 588 score, 2 collections, and a charge-off from a car loan he'd defaulted on 4 years ago. I did not find this out from Alicia. I found it out from Damon himself, 6 weeks later, when he sat down at my kitchen table with a printed spreadsheet and explained his plan. The plan was this. I would add Damon to the deed of my condo as a co-owner. He would then use our combined credit profile, my 761 score, his 588, to take out a home equity line of credit. With that money, they would purchase a house. He would manage the condo as a rental property, using the rental income to pay back the equity line. Everyone wins. He had a folder, printed tabs, a highlighter. I stared at him across my kitchen table for a long moment. Damon, I said, you're asking me to use my home as collateral for a loan in your name. Our name, he said, once you add me to the deed. I'm not adding you to the deed. I'm not adding you to the deed. He tilted his head. Why not? You're not using the equity. It's not about the equity. I'm not co-signing financial instruments with someone I've known for 2 years. That has nothing to do with, it has everything to do with you not trusting family, he said, and his voice shifted slightly. Not loud, not aggressive, just harder. Alicia is your sister. Our baby is your niece or nephew. You'd rather sit on this asset than help your own family. I'd rather not risk my home, I said. The answer is no. He left without finishing his coffee. Alicia called me the next morning, gentle and apologetic, trying to smooth it over. I told her I loved her and I wasn't angry at her and I meant both things completely. But that wasn't the end of it, it was just the beginning. Over the next 4 months, the pressure came in waves. Damon texted me articles about the wealth gap in Black families and how hoarding assets perpetuated cycles of poverty. He told my mother, my actual mother, that I was being selfish, and my mother, who loves me but also deeply loves the idea of family harmony, called me twice to ask if there was some way to help Alicia out. Damon's own mother sent me a Facebook message I still have screenshots of, which called me cold-hearted and suggested that a woman who wouldn't sacrifice for family didn't deserve what she had. I kept my responses short. I kept my lawyer's number close. Yes, I had called a real estate attorney after the kitchen table conversation, not because I expected what happened next, but because I've watched enough people lose everything to a bad cosign to know that family is not a legal protection. My attorney, whose name is Henrietta, told me to document everything. I did. The baby shower was Alicia's idea, and it was genuinely one of the nicest days I'd helped plan in years. 63 women, a rented event space at a hotel in Buckhead, a dessert table with a custom floral arrangement that Alicia nearly cried over when she walked in. My college roommate Denise flew in from DC. She's a federal magistrate judge now, which still sometimes startles me when I remember we used to share a bathroom the size of a closet. She hugged Alicia for a long time and rubbed her belly and declared that this baby already had the best energy. Damon was not supposed to be there. The shower was women only. Alicia had made that clear. He arrived at hour 2, while people were still eating, with 2 of his friends I'd never met, both of them in sneakers and basketball shorts like they'd wandered in from a pickup game. He grabbed a plate of food, chatted with some of Alicia's friends' husbands who had dropped off gifts at the entrance, and seemed like he might just be passing through. Then he picked up the microphone from the DJ station. We had a DJ, a woman named Tony, who did wonderful work and was standing right there, visibly confused, as Damon unplugged the music mid-song and tapped the mic. "Excuse me, ladies." He was grinning. Big, warm, performing. "Sorry to interrupt. I just want to take a second to celebrate not just my beautiful wife, but my wonderful sister-in-law, who has done so much to make today happen." Polite applause. I was at a table with Denise and 2 of Alicia's coworkers. I did not clap. Denise glanced at me. "And I want to announce," Damon continued, his voice still warm, still performing, "that it looks like we've finally figured out our housing situation. My sister-in-law has agreed to let us take over her condo so we can use the equity to buy our family home." The room went very still. Not silent. There were still little sounds, forks on plates, a chair scraping. But the conversation stopped. I heard my mother say, "What?" I stood up slowly. "I haven't agreed to anything, Damon." He looked at me, and something shifted behind his eyes. Still smiling. "We talked about this. We talked about it, and I said no." Someone in the back of the room coughed. Alicia was frozen at the head table, her hands flat on the tablecloth, her face a kind of pale I'd never seen on her before. "Come on," Damon said, his voice dropping the performance just slightly, going to something more pointed. "Don't do this here. Don't embarrass Alicia on her day." "You picked up the microphone," I said, "at her shower, that you weren't supposed to be at, and announced a financial arrangement that doesn't exist. You chose here." His friends near the door shifted. One of them said something under his breath that I didn't catch. Damon set down his plate. He stepped away from the DJ station. And then, I want to be accurate about this, because I've replayed it many times, he picked up the glass of sparkling cider from the gift table beside him and he threw it. Not dropped, not spilled. Threw it with his arm at my face. The glass didn't hit me. The cider did, my face, my neck, my blouse. Cold and fizzy and completely humiliating. 63 women went absolutely silent. Then Denise put down her petit four, stood up to her full height, and said in the voice she uses in federal court, "Sir, do not move." Damon laughed. He actually laughed. "Who are you?" "My name is Denise Whitmore," she said. "I'm a United States magistrate judge for the Northern District of Georgia." She pulled out her phone. "What you just did constitutes simple battery under Georgia Code 16523. I am a witness. You will stay exactly where you are, or I will make a call that will ruin the rest of your afternoon." The laugh died. One of Damon's friends said, quietly, "Bro." "I'm not your bro," Denise said without looking at him. She was already dialing. My mother had her arms around Alicia, who had not moved. I walked to the restroom, stood over the sink, and pressed cold paper towels to my face while my hands shook. Not from fear. From the very specific adrenaline of a moment you knew was coming but didn't know would feel like this. My phone buzzed. It was Henrietta. I don't know how she knew. I found out later that my mother had called her from the parking lot while everything was happening. My mother, who keeps every number I've ever given her in a contacts list organized by category, had called my attorney before she called anyone else. That tells you something about my mother that I love deeply. Henrietta's message said, "Don't speak to him. Get photos of your face and clothing. I'm on my way." I took photos in the fluorescent light of the hotel bathroom. The cider had gone into my hair. My white blouse was soaked through. My cheek wasn't bruised, but there was redness where the cold liquid had hit me hard enough to sting. When I came back out, the event space was quieter. Damon's two friends had left. Damon was sitting in a chair near the entrance, his arms crossed, and two hotel security staff were standing nearby. Denise was on the far side of the room talking to a police officer who had arrived with remarkable speed. I later learned the hotel had already called before Denise even asked. Alicia was sitting at the head table alone. The decorations were still up. The dessert table was mostly untouched. The beautiful floral arrangement was still perfect. She looked like someone had turned off a light inside her. I sat down next to her and didn't say anything for a moment. "I didn't know he was going to do that," she said. "I know you didn't." "I don't." She stopped. "I don't know what he thought was going to happen. He thought 60 people watching would make it harder for me to say no in public than it was to say no in private," I said. "He was wrong." She put her head on my shoulder and I let her, and we sat like that while the police officer finished talking to Denise and started walking toward us. I gave my statement. Denise gave hers, which the officer, a young woman who kept her face professionally neutral but whose eyebrows did a great deal of communicating, told me would be very significant given Miss N. Whitmore's position. My mother gave a statement too because she had been standing 12 feet away when it happened. The hotel provided footage from 2 different cameras within the hour. Henrietta arrived 40 minutes after I'd called her, and within 20 minutes of her arrival, she had taken over every aspect of the conversation in a way that made me deeply grateful I'd called her 8 months ago. Damon was not arrested that night. Simple battery in Georgia can go either way, and the responding officer explained that the DA's office would review. But he was issued a criminal citation, which meant a mandatory court date, and Henrietta immediately filed for a temporary protective order on my behalf, citing the incident and the months of documented harassment and financial coercion. He was served 2 days later. I won't say the following 2 weeks were easy. They were not. My mother called me 6 times, not to pressure me, but because she was worried about Alicia and didn't know what to do with her worry. Alicia was 34 weeks pregnant, living with a man who was now facing a criminal citation and had just watched her baby shower become a police incident. My aunt, my mother's sister, who has opinions about everything and the volume to back them up. left me a voicemail that I listened to once and then deleted, in which she explained that I was destroying this family over a piece of property. I saved the voicemail before I deleted it. Henrietta had told me to save everything. What I did in those 2 weeks, instead of spiraling, was work. I am very good at my job. I have a 9-year-old patient who had a traumatic brain injury last spring and who had just learned to button his own shirt again. And when I watched him do it, slow and careful and so proud, I thought, this is the work. This is why I saved for 8 years. This is what the condo is protecting. I also, on Henrietta's advice, had a forensic accountant pull together a clean record of every financial contribution I had ever made that benefited Damon or Alicia's household. I had a number in my head, but seen yet documented was something else. $31,000 over 4 years. Birthday gifts, help with a car repair when Damon's transmission went out, covering 2 months of their rent when he lost a sales job, a laptop for Alicia when hers died during a work deadline. I had not kept receipts for all of it. But I had Venmo records, bank statements, and text message confirmations for enough of it that the picture was clear. Henrietta called it a pattern of financial generosity met with escalating demands. I called it being a big sister to someone married to the wrong person. The criminal case hearing was on a Thursday morning, 6 weeks after the shower. I took the day off work. I wore a gray blazer and low heels, and I had not slept well, but I had eaten breakfast, which felt like a victory. The courthouse was in downtown Atlanta, a building I'd driven past 1,000 times but never been inside. Henrietta walked me through security and we sat in a hard-wooden bench in the hallway and she went over what to expect. Denise was already there. She'd rearranged her own docket. An actual federal judge rearranged her docket to be present for my hearing. She squeezed my hand when she saw me and said, "You look great," which was probably not true, but I chose to believe it. Damon arrived with an attorney I didn't recognize. Private counsel, well-dressed, carrying a leather folio. He did not look at me when he came in. Alicia was not with him. I had not expected her to be, and I was right not to. The hearing was not long. The judge was a man in his 60s with the expression of someone who had seen everything and was no longer surprised by any of it. The prosecutor presented the incident, the unauthorized use of the event microphone, the public statement about a financial arrangement the victim had not agreed to, and then the thrown glass, documented on hotel security footage which was played on a screen at the front of the courtroom. Watching it on video was different than living it. In the footage, you can see the exact moment Damon decides to do it. There's a pause, a look at me, and then the deliberate motion of his arm. It doesn't look impulsive, it looks decided. The judge watched it twice. His expression did not change. Damon's attorney argued that it was a minor incident and that the cider had not caused injury and that his client was under enormous financial and emotional stress related to an expanding family. He used the phrase heat of the moment twice. Then Denise gave her witness testimony. She was in court clothes, dark suit, no jewelry except small earrings, and she spoke the way she speaks in her own courtroom with the absolute unhurried confidence of someone who is never wrong about what they saw. She described the incident precisely. She used the phrase deliberate and targeted when describing the throwing motion. She noted that she had observed Damon's demeanor before the incident and that he had not appeared intoxicated or distressed. She said that she had told him not to move and he had laughed. The judge looked at Damon's attorney. "Your client laughed at a federal magistrate judge." The attorney said nothing. The judge looked at Damon. "Son, I have been on this bench for 22 years. I've seen people make bad decisions in moments of genuine emotion. What I watched on that footage was not a moment of emotion. It was a decision." He set down his papers. "The court finds sufficient cause to proceed on the battery charge. I'm also told we have a request to formalize the existing protective order." "That is granted." Damon's attorney leaned over and whispered something to him. Damon's jaw tightened. "Furthermore," the judge continued, "I'm going to note for the record that this incident appears to be part of a documented pattern of financial pressure directed at the victim, which the prosecutor has included in the case file. I want to make clear that the court takes an extremely dim view of using public settings to coerce financial compliance. Is that understood?" Damon nodded once, tightly. "Say it out loud," the judge said. "Yes, sir," Damon said, and the two words sounded like they cost him something. We were outside in the lobby when I saw him again, briefly. He was with his attorney, and they were moving quickly toward the exit. He looked at me once. Not with rage this time, and not with the charm either. Just with the face of someone who had understood, finally, that a certain version of his future was no longer available to him. His attorney called Henrietta that afternoon. They wanted to discuss resolution. I'll keep the details of what was negotiated private because some of it is still in process. What I can tell you is that the protective order stands. The criminal case is being pursued by the DA's office and is not something I can drop. And Henrietta has sent a formal letter to Damon's attorney making very clear that the condo is held in a trust I set up 3 months after the kitchen table conversation. That it cannot be co-opted or liened without a cascade of legal action that would be extraordinarily expensive and extraordinarily public, and that any further contact regarding the property in any form through any channel will result in the addition of a harassment claim to the existing case. He has not contacted me about the condo since. Alicia had the baby on a Wednesday morning. A girl. 7 pounds, 2 ounces. Alicia texted me a photo at 6 a.m. And I was already awake and I cried over my coffee in a way I hadn't cried in months. Just clean, simple tears. Because she was perfect and Alicia looked exhausted and happy, and I loved them both so much it made my chest hurt. I went to the hospital that afternoon. Damon was there, and we did not speak, and we didn't have to. I sat with Alicia and held my niece, and she grabbed my finger with her whole fist and held on, the way babies do, like she already knew she could trust me. Alicia and I have been talking, really talking, more in the past 2 months than we have in the past 2 years. She is not defending him anymore. She is not in a good place. But she is in an honest one. And I have watched her slowly, painfully do the thing that's hardest. Look at a person she loves clearly, without the filter of what she hoped he was. Her therapist, she started seeing someone 6 weeks ago, told her that what she's doing takes courage. I believe that. She asked me once if I was angry at her. I told her the truth. I was never angry at her. I was scared for her. Those are different things. And knowing the difference matters. My mother, for her part, has been in the kitchen. This is how she processes things. She cooked Alicia 2 weeks of meals after the baby came home. She brought me a pan of baked macaroni and cheese last Sunday, set it on my counter, hugged me for a long time without saying anything, and then sat down at my kitchen table and asked me to tell her everything from the beginning. So I did, and she listened. And she said, I should have listened sooner, and I told her it was okay, even though it had not always been okay, because she was listening now, and now was what I had. The condo is still mine. I had the locks changed the week after the shower, not because anyone else had a key, but because it felt important to do something physical and final. I stood in the doorway after the locksmith left, with my new keys in my hand, and just looked at the place. The afternoon light coming in through the windows I'd chosen, the floors I'd refinished, the bookshelf I'd built from a kit over a very long and deeply unglamorous weekend. 8 years. $47,000. 1 broken dishwasher, eventually replaced. 1 neighbor who still plays bass guitar at midnight, though not as often now. Mine. Last week, I sat on my balcony in the early morning before work, coffee in hand, listening to the city wake up. My niece is 3 weeks old and already has opinions about being put down. Alicia sent me a video of her making a face at a stuffed elephant, and I watched it 4 times and laughed each time. Denise texted me from DC, how's our girl? I sent back the elephant video. She replied, she has your stubborn face, I mean that as a compliment. I smiled and put the phone down and picked up my coffee. The morning was cool for Atlanta in this season, just enough that I'd pulled a blanket over my legs, and the light was coming in gold and slow, and I thought about all the things I almost let someone take from me. The condo, the stability, the quiet life I'd built out of discipline and sacrifice and love for a sister who deserved better than what she'd been handed. I thought about a 9-year-old boy learning to button a shirt. I thought about what it means to hold on. Then I finished my coffee, got dressed, and went to work.